From time to time, people come into Lighthouse books and they say, what should I collect? The best answer, obviously, always, is collect what you enjoy. Collect what you feel comfortable with. And by the by, be creative with it. Do things that other folks have never done. Creativity is the key to it. But there's another aspect as well, too, and that is that we live in a visual world. We're surrounded with visual images, iPads and iPhones and computers and television and movies and on and on and on. And that's had an effect on the book world as well. The kinds of things that are appreciating the most rapidly are things that have visual appeal. Sometimes it's bindings, sometimes it's signatures, but most often it has to do with illustrations. One of the things we don't ever stop to think about is that for the first 400 years of printing, there was no color printing. It wasn't until about 1830 that stone lithography came along and was printed in much the same way that woodcut prints were published as well. Before then, of course, everything was done by hand. The color in various maps and prints was hand colored, oftentimes by children or women. It was one of the few ways that a woman could actually support herself. And then along came stone lithography. It needed to have a porous stone on which crayons were drawn and then printed in much the same way that Japanese wood blocks would be, or that sort of thing. If you look at a stone lithograph, oftentimes in the shadow areas you can actually see the little pebble effect that the stone left. And then, of course, they would sometimes use some hand coloring to augment that as well. And one of the great examples of that hand coloring augmentation is in this series that was done by McKinney and Hall. And there are 120 prints of Indians in here that have been done with stone lithographs and then hand colored afterwards. But eventually the stones were completely mined away in the Bavarian Alps, and it was no longer possible to use them. So folks came up with the use of metal plates to produce the color, and they would roll the plates or roll the printing press along the paper, and then in order to fix the colors they'd use an emulsion, and the emulsion gives a chromolithograph, which is what we're talking about now. A chromolithograph, a sort of sheen, and it's because of the emulsion that's used to fix the colors. Once that was established, we have a bouquet of colors that came along. They were used for advertising. All of a sudden, in the late 1800s, we have many, many trade cards, advertisements were used, and of course, children's books as well. And because chromolithography is a mechanized process, for the first time, lots of different copies, lots of different examples could be produced. And so we have examples turning up in the advertising world. We have examples turning up in children's and that kind of thing also, because we could have a lot of copies in a short period of time. And another important aspect is that for the first time, regular folks could have artwork in their homes, and a good many people had prints put into their houses, and for that reason chromolithography is often called the democratic art as well. Chromolithography was popular from about 1870 to about 1910, And it's one of the areas that's often overlooked. It's a great area, and and is still affordable for most people. I would encourage folks to take a look at chromolithographs.